Hi everybody, I'm Christina and this is my September wrap-up. This month I read a total of 21 books and 3 short stories. It was a pretty good reading month for me because usually September is busy. I had a teacher strike going on where I'm from, so I got 3 weeks in September at home and babysitting and all that stuff to actually just read more. First off, I participated in the Year-a-thon's New Adult Week, in which I read a lot of new adult books. I started reading new adult books a little bit earlier than the week. I started them in late August by reading a few. So my first book I ended up finishing in September was Tempting the Player by J Maas. I just decided to finish up marathoning the trilogy, so as you can expect, the next book I read was Tempting the Bodyguard by J Maas. After reading the entire Lux series around the time that Opposition came out in August, I wanted to read some more Jennifer L. Armentrout, but I wanted to try the new adult. I enjoyed it. Not the best thing I read this new adult week, but I still really found them enjoyable. Next, I read Slammed by Colleen Hoover, and the reason why I read this was Colleen Hoover was been recommended by other booktubers, so I decided, why not try it? I had someone else, a friend, also mention the fact that Colleen Hoover book's really good, so I ended up reading Slammed, Ugly Love at the end of August. That is still my favorite Colleen Hoover book after reading everything she has written. I read them all during that week. So I read Slammed, and then I read Point of Retreat and This Girl. These were all 5-star amazing books. I opted for Maybe Someday by Colleen Hoover, and this one is probably my second favorite after Ugly Love. I just really liked this one. I think when it comes to contemporaries, I enjoy standalones. It's definitely not totally fluffy and happy all the time, but it's also not super duper depressing. It's kind of a nice happy medium. And I opted for something that was the complete opposite of like happy, light, and fluffy, so in between my new adult sprees, Sparks Rise by Alexandra Bracken came out, and I had picked up The Darkest Minds earlier this year after hearing so much about it on BookTube, and I decided to read the short story right when it came out, and I read it on my Kindle, and it was like the most disgusting thing I've ever read, but in a really good way, if that makes any sense. Alexandra Bracken writes amazing short stories. Next, I jumped back onto reading more Colleen Hoover, and I read Hopeless, Losing Hope, and Finding Cinderella to just complete that hopeless duology plus short story thing. I decided to get a book done for read along. So I reread The Evolution of Mara Dyer by Michelle Hodkin. I hadn't reread these. Like I read the Unbecoming in August for Mara books, and then now I'd be rereading Evolution. And I'm so excited about Retribution. I absolutely love Mara Dyer. One night was like, let's read something fast, quick. And I hadn't read The Fear Trials by Lindsay Cummings, even though I loved The Murder Complex. So I got the short story, read it on my Kindle. You'll learn soon enough that I am basically a Kindle reader. And I liked knowing the backstory to the character of Meadow. I'm doing this thing with my friend where we're reading books together that we don't really know of that much. We read The Replacement by Brenna Jovanoff. I wasn't crazy about it. Next up was something that I've been like dying to trying to read, and I finally read it, and it was Saga Volume 3 by Brian K. Vaughan and Fiona Staples. I had read the previous 2 volumes for the BookTube-a-thon back earlier in the summer as my graphic novel component. First book, and I've been actually waiting for this for years, was The Iron Trial by Cassandra Clare and Holly Black. I consider it quite an accomplishment how early I jumped on the Cassandra Clare train, and I am holding on for dear life, and I'm not letting go. It was really, really good. Probably one of the best books I read this month. Next up was a book I was super duper anticipating, and it let me down. The Infinite Sea by Rick Yancey, which I read on my Kindle in about an evening. I got it, and I just marathoned it. And I didn't like it as much as The Fifth Wave, which I think a lot of people are in that same boat. But it just kind of let me down. I felt the Cassie storyline was neglected. I didn't hate Ringer, but I wanted more emphasis, I think, on everyone's relationships and seeing everybody together. And I would have liked to have reread The Fifth Wave because I forgot half of the characters, and I'm still going to continue, of course, because I want to know, like, what's up with this world and stuff. Next up was another book that came out that day, and it was Ashes to Ashes by Jenny Han and Siobhan Vivian, which I also read on my Kindle. I had read Burn for Burn and Fire with Fire back in like late June, early July, and I loved them. They came across with a Pretty Little Liars feel, but much deeper, darker, and more meaningful to them, and I loved it. And Ashes to Ashes was really well as it was going along. It's still an amazing book. I just felt the ending let me down, and all my ships sank. So, you know, that never makes you feel good. Next up, I decided to read On the Fence by Casey West. It was just a kind of a read because I want to, don't really know why, just go for it read. And I really enjoyed it. It had slight My Life Next Door feel, but I didn't like it as much as My Life Next Door. But I'd still encourage it, and I'm hoping to read more Casey West in the future. Next up, I went for the opposite of light, fluffy contemporary, and I picked up the Booksplosion Book of the Month, which was Rumble by Ellen Hopkins. And this was my first Ellen Hopkins. Reverse kind of was like, I don't know how I feel, but I didn't mind it. Next up, I read the book for September. For my buddy read with my friend, because technically the replacement was our August read, and I slacked off and read it in September. So the September read was A Death-Struck Year by Mikey Lucier. It was pretty good historical fiction. I very much liked the romance in it. I liked the realisticness in, yeah, I'm gonna pop his eardrum open and stuff's gonna go everywhere. Next is a book I've been dying to read since I heard about it, from Reagan at Peruse Project, and it was The Kiss of Deception by Mary E. Pearson. I wanted to see if I could guess the guys right. Well, like, let's face it, that's why I wanted to read this book. And I guessed it right this time. I've been psyching myself up for this, and I was ready. Throne of Glass by Sarah J Maas. I've been putting it off. Air of Fire is out. I've been putting it off. And I finally read Throne of Glass, Crown of Midnight, and The Assassin's Blade all back to back this month. I am currently reading Air of Fire, and this fantasy series is so amazing. I've added Throne of Glass and Crown of Midnight to my favorites. I am Team Dorian, by the way, if anyone is concerned. Team Dorian. Like, he's got stacks of books that basically sells me on anyone. Will, Noah, Ethan. I could go on. I like boys who like books. Those are all the books I read this month. I am hoping to get a good number in October as well, but I do have school, so we'll see how it goes. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!